Alfonso Luigi Marra uses, and I'm glad of it, my notoriety to reveal to the world what bank, seigniorage, and emotional strategism are. A notoriety that I have because, with a few exceptions, the media but also the distribution and publishing are subservient to the bank powers, and they work not to inform, to form mass thinking. So they've used me the way they use anything to distract people from the need for a real change. People of good faith know in fact that the attack on the books and videos of Marra is piloted by the sentinels of the regime, who are now afraid of having to explain why they, instead, have covered over. Seigniorage, that is not the principal theme of the female labyrinth or the story of Giovanni and Margherita, which is the description of the mode of formation of thought and feelings. That is, of the way in which we elaborate our knowledge and achieve an understanding of things, come to be pervaded by love or overcome by vices. Books in which is written where it was possible in narrative form, in the case of the female labyrinth, in the form of an epistolary of love and text message. Also what intelligence, cunning, strategism, and chronic psychosis is to the daughter of strategism are. And then for how and why the economic powers interfere in the sexual sphere, and many others, for example in the field of law, of the history of the formation of cultures, or of physics. That said, primary bank seigniorage consists in the fact that, undisturbed by the magistrates, the central banks, including the Bank of Italy, the European Central Bank, the Federal Reserve, are incredibly private. Something which, since it was discovered a few years ago, attempts have been made to diminish the importance of, but which is instead the ruin of the world, because the central banks print as proprietors the banknotes at solely the cost of paper and of ink, because it has been almost a century that there has been no need for any gold coverage, and then they sell them to states, making them pay an equal amount in treasury bills, thereby inventing the public debt. Primary seigniorage must be eliminated by nationalizing the central banks, and thus making them public, as everyone believes they already are, in such a way that states can produce by themselves all the money they need without creating any devaluation. Because devaluation is something different from that which we believe, and is created only when money is produced by a counterfeiter, that is, by anyone who is not state. In fact, by virtue of the phenomenon of veritization, making something real, which was defined by Marra himself. If it is the state that produces money, devaluation never occurs, because the state only gives you money if you cover it, or make it real, by giving in exchange assets, services, or rights, whereby there is a parallel growth in the currency in circulation and in real wealth. Inveramento, veritization that does not occur when money is produced by a counterfeiter, because the counterfeiter assigns the money to himself without covering it first. Secondary seigniorage consists instead in the fact that if, for example, you pay into the bank 100,000 euros, dollars, pounds, sterling, etc., the bank withholds about 2% as reserve, and the loans the other 98%, which, once deposited in another bank, is again loaned in a cascade effect at 98%, and so on ad infinitum. In the end, the banking system, through a round of loans of an amount that is 2% less each time, will have made loans for an amount 50 times higher, with the aim of thus earning interest also multiplied by 50 on these loans of other people's money. Secondary seigniorage that can therefore be eliminated by equalizing lending and depositing rates in such a way that the interest goes automatically to the owners of the money, and to the bank go only the commissions, as is right. The abolition of seigniorage will then lead to a drastic reduction in taxes, which are not nice but awful, because they serve only to rake up money that has been veritized in order to purchase in the stores of the central banks the money to veritize it. Having abolished seigniorage, a single tax which we might call general would be sufficient to be paid without offsetting debit and credit on the consumption of goods and services. Seigniorage, against which it is not true that no one and no country can do anything, because as soon as the magistrates, politicians, and the information sector begin to do their duty, these monsters will be defeated in an instant. Marra is not on the right, because the right errs in favoring the individual. Nor is he on the left, because the left errs in sacrificing the individual, nor in the center, because the center is placing oneself midway between two errors. He believes instead that the individual should be allowed to develop freely as pleases the right, provided that his development is functional to the development of society, which cannot but please the left as well. A political idea which coincides with the concept of intelligence, which, according to his definition, is no other than a moral category exclusive to man, because it consists in capacity to develop oneself through the development of others. Capacity that renders man alone capable of love, because the dog will be capable of intelligence and love only when, looking into your eyes, it understands that you are hungry and decides to share the bowl with you. While for the moment, like many men and women, it can love you perhaps a great deal, but only and always for that which serves him. A loving only for that which serves us that has always caused an excessive development of forms of emotional strategism that trigger a confrontational dynamic that from the couple extends then to society, causing the suffering of individuals and a great slowdown in the course of civilization. Strategism that will always exist, but must become more civil because, today, it does not allow for the achievement of a stage of collective intelligence suitable to stop the climatic involution. As for seigniorage, you can learn more about it in 9 languages from the document you will find at marra.it. Why use Ruby to explain seigniorage?
Because it is to symbolize how none of those figures, journalists, politicians, magistrates, that people are accustomed to seeing on television, can take on this topic. Because the price of visibility is to subscribe to this sort of commitment, to never take on a certain type of topic. Indeed, to use any topic, even the most terrible topics, unfortunately such as child abduction, killings, and then gossip, to distract from issues such as seigniorage.
Can you tell us again in person what seigniorage is?
Seigniorage is the crime of all crimes, a crime of such frightening gravity that the mafia, the camorra, and the 'ndrangheta are used. The crimes of these organizations as a distraction from the crime of bank seigniorage. It's something that is much more difficult to believe than to understand, because it is an extremely simple thing. So what happens? What happens simply is that the central banks, the Bank of Italy, the Federal Reserve, the European Central Bank, are not public, are not part of the state, as everyone believes they are, but are private. In Italy, the Banca Intesa San Paolo possessed, until a short while ago, about 42% of the Bank of Italy. Now, I don't know precisely the percentages. And what do? They print money at the cost of the paper and ink. It no longer requires gold coverage. Nothing. And then, incredibly, they sell this money to the state, which pays for them with special bills, which are treasury bills. And that is how, from this incredible little trick, this thing that is on everyone's lips and is called the public debt, comes into being. This is the public debt. To eliminate the public debt, it is sufficient to nationalize the central banks. Everyone thinks they are public. Just nationalize them. Because if it were the state that printed money like an owner, what would happen? That this money wouldn't be given to anyone in exchange for nothing. The state doesn't give away money to you. The state gives you money because you give goods, services, rights. So what do you have? You have a parallel growth of the money circulating and the real wealth that is used each time to pay for that money to cover it. And then there would never be devaluation. When is there devaluation? When the money is printed by a counterfeiter. And who is the counterfeiter? It's anyone other than the state. Anyone who is not the community. When a counterfeiter prints money, then what do you have? There isn't this process that I myself have defined as veritization. The counterfeiter does not make it real by covering it with something in exchange because he puts it in his pocket. He attributes it directly to himself. So what does he cause? He causes an increase in the circulating money, but does not increase the real wealth at the same time. And that is how devaluation comes about. This is seigniorage. This is why it's the root of evil. Because these organizations basically, apart from doing an incredible and absurd thing in order then to cover it, to manage it, trigger a series of contradictions that are the malaise experienced by the whole planetary society.
And what is the Bilderberg Club?
The Bilderberg Club is a squalid organization that was founded in 1952 by two squalid characters, a former SS officer and a fixer, which then grew enormously with the support and help of the Rockefellers, Rothschilds, the banking powers, which through this organization appoints and controls the men who then control the world. This year you attend the Bilderberg meeting in Greece, or wherever it is held, and maybe a few months later you will become commissioner or president of one of the Western states, the United States of America, or the director of something large. That's what the Bilderberg Club is.
Why do you say that taxes are the consequence of seigniorage?
Yes, taxes are caused by seigniorage and are illegal. That is the work of the criminal justice system that pursues tax evaders. The finance police here and the finance police there, is an illegal activity. Why? Because taxes are used solely to rake in veritized money, to buy from the central banks the money to be veritized. That is to say, if it were the state that produced the money, they would produce it, and that is all. They would have no need of taxes to buy money. It would only take one tax that I have called general, that is a tax on consumption, for which you buy something and pay a certain percentage. Not like VAT, with the give and take, you just pay it, non-refundable, because a mechanism of fiscal remuneration with respect to activities is still required. For the rest, the tax system is the child of seigniorage. Therefore, when seigniorage disappears from the world, taxes will also disappear automatically. That's why I said to you that it is the crime of crimes. And what other purposes do taxes serve? They also serve to criminalize the citizens. That is, someone is a tax evader, another is a money launderer. They are instruments for domination of society, which the banking powers implement through these expedients. It's incredible, eh? And yet, look, I work on these things in the cases. That is, it's not that I talk about them on talk shows. We awaited the general appearance of all university professors in Italy to defend the banks in relation to seigniorage. They were not able to add a word to what I'm saying. And we have been presenting suits on this issue for many years. Until now, the judiciary has wriggled out of it, turned things around, looked away, claimed to have no jurisdiction. In short, they no longer know what to say to avoid the subject. But that is exactly how things stand. Taxes are illegal. The nationalization of the central banks is the starting point for any evolutionary process of society.
But who are you to have the courage to say such things? Isn't that crazy?
3 questions then. Whether it's crazy, courage, and who I am. It's not crazy that I say such things, but it's crazy, however, that such things happen. In any case, if I'm crazy, I'm in very good company, because only a society of madmen can accept the level of abuse that modern society is subjected to by the banking powers. As for courage, I think it's armies that measure themselves by the caliber of the guns and the number of soldiers. Philosophers, however, are always alone, but they are never afraid of anyone because they know how to find their friends in the very heart of their enemies. Finally, as to who I am, I'm the author of my books. Books in which, in narrative form so as to facilitate the divulgation, I set out above all the basic theme. A theory that, in my opinion, is of extraordinary importance for the formation of thought. That is, the way in which the individual processes his knowledge to arrive at an understanding of things. And therefore, then, a number of other theses in the field of psychoanalysis, physics, law, sociology. That's who I am. Therefore, to then, so to speak, truly verify it, I'm sorry to say it seems like an advertisement, well, you need to read my books.
What are your predictions for the future?
My predictions for the future are beautiful. I believe we are already inside an extraordinary phenomenon which constitutes, that is, the greatest moment of change in the whole history of humanity. And I am certain of it for the simple fact that, if it doesn't happen, soon we will have passed the point of no return of climatic involution. So man who is astute and ultimately knows how to protect himself soon will begin this change to save himself, and in saving himself will then bring about this magnificent, this immense transformation. This is what I have defined as a revolution. In my books, I have defined it as a revolution without blood, without deaths, and without the defeated, because we have all participated too much in what has happened to be taken aback by it, with too little responsibility for the evil that has been caused to human society and to the planet itself.
You've provoked many reactions, and not all of them positive.
Well, now I'll reveal something, but it's not a big secret because it's written in the history of Giovanni and Margherita. Those who have read it know it. It's all foreseen. In the story of Giovanni and Margherita, I described in 1985 how, in what forms, to what degree, once the wall of silence surrounding me for 25 years had fallen, I would be attacked, mocked, to try to stop me, stop my arguments. Because when you write things that are at high risk of producing changes, society is rightly afraid. And then, until it understands, it tries to stop you. But I believe that change is on the one hand inevitable, on the other extremely advantageous. So I'm sure that society will soon become more serene, will deepen, homologate these arguments, and then the process of change will quickly take off again, unstoppable, towards its absolutely positive outcome.
What would you like to say to people?
I would say to people, get to know, because knowledge modifies the balance of forces and gives rise to interaction. When there is interaction, any form of prevarication dissolves.